What's up, guys? It's JZNES back again with another video. Today we're talking about Legend of Zelda, Link to the Past, A Link to the Ass. No, I'm just kidding. That's a Pat the NES Punk joke there. Yeah, I also have the strategy guide here. Now, my first exposure to this game was not the Super Nintendo version, but the Game Boy Advance version of Link to the Past that was included with 4 swords there. I didn't have this guide back in the day, but that would have been pretty handy. That is originally how I played it back in the day, portably on my Game Boy Advance screen. That was when I had the SP, so that's what it kind of would have been like, would be playing the SP. And I remember I'd take that with me. Actually, no, that was one of the games I did play on my regular Game Boy Advance too, but I remember watching TV and just like running around in the world and whatnot of Link to the Past. Particularly one time I was watching the Wild Thornberries. I don't know why I would be talking about that in a Link to the Past review, but I remember I was on the second dungeon running around and trying to beat that. But I thought it was a really cool game back then. It was very... Obviously, Link's Awakening was more inspired by Link to the Past, but the game I had played at the time was Link's Awakening prior to this. So, and I don't think I'd beat that game at this point. But, yeah, so I started playing this game on the Game Boy Advance there. What's cool about this game in particular, now with hindsight, is it's very much solid continuation of the original Zelda, establishing Zelda 1, that is, establishing a formula of Zelda games and what Zelda games are going to be like, making Zelda 2 sort of this outlier thing. It was more similar to the original Legend of Zelda there than it was to Zelda 2 and whatnot. And of course, again, this time I played it on the Switch Online there, which I'm actually looking at now, which is a great version to play because you have the rewind function, which definitely helps a lot in this game, particularly, maybe even more so than Zelda 2. Not that they don't make it easy enough to get back through a dungeon. The dungeons aren't actually that long, just like some of the later ones get really, really confusing. But they're well structured enough to where if you need to get back to a certain room or whatever, it's not going to take you that long. It might just take you a little while to get through there. So, yeah. But, oh shit, this is like a while back. Why am I... Fuck, I can just... I don't think I saved since this point, though. Anyway, or did I? What's this one? Oh yeah, this is the one. Okay. So, yeah, it felt like a very natural evolution to the original Zelda. You know, you have this big world, and this time it wasn't as open. It's a little bit open, but there's still sort of a linear path to things. In the Dark World section, the later section of the game, you can actually sort of sequence break. Not really sequence break, but there is a set order, but you can go out of order, and it actually is to your benefit a few times that you do go out of order, like doing Dungeon 6 before the 5th dungeon to get the cane, so that when you go to the 5th dungeon, there's a specific puzzle that'll take you a lot longer, where you have to push a block down from above down a pit to be accessible for this room, and you have to go all the way around and do all this stuff and a bunch of like bullshit just to get to there. Or if you prior to that had this the cane, it'll make a block and you can just proceed on to the next room and it'll be no big deal there. So that is definitely pretty nice to yeah, to have little shortcuts like that and little things like that. And actually, there's a lot of things where sort of optional things help out a lot too. There's this cape that you can get that helps you like walk over spikes and stuff by using magic, of course. There's a little like gremlin guy that'll like give you basically double magic. It'll have the amount of magic that is necessary to use your certain items that use magic, like the ice rod and the fire rod and whatnot. Also, I like how the fire rod is a very natural extension of the wand of the original, where you could shoot the fire or whatnot. And then they thought, oh yeah, well, let's make an ice version of that too. And then they had a lot of, well, a few bosses anyway, that you needed either the ice or the fire rod, and then the Turtle Rock one, you needed both to destroy his different elemental heads there, and I thought that was really cool. There's a boss before that where he's like frozen, and you need to shoot him with the fire rod in order to unfreeze him, thaw him out, and then destroy him, which is pretty cool. Yeah, and what's cool about that is actually the ice rod is even just like a optional. I say optional in quotes because it's not necessarily optional, because you do need it to defeat Turtle Rock. But in the light world, it's kind of like off the beaten path, and it's sort of what seems to be an optional item. A lot like the flippers, like, you know, they're kind of off the beaten path, and there's a way to get to them, but you have to kind of switch between dark and light world to do that. I do like the mechanic of switching dark to light world. Pretty much once you kind of get your access points with the flute there, then it's a nice mechanic. Before that, it's kind of troublesome to and once you get the second form of the gauntlets there, that'll let you lift the stones everywhere that basically make portals. That's when it becomes really convenient, and the mechanic becomes fun. I think A Link Between Worlds definitely handled that concept better, where you can just slip in between different spots in the world, and you don't necessarily need these very specific spots. I mean, they are specific spots, but they're a lot more abundant than in this game, which I feel like is a big plus, because that can lead to some better designed world. Not that the world is this world, just taken to the extreme, and I think that's a big strength of A Link Between Worlds, is it really builds upon this game's world, which it is a good world, and it's filled with, you know, characters, and it has a town and stuff. Like, I know Zelda 2 had towns, but this game even takes that from Zelda 2 and says, oh well, yeah, we can do something with that. We can make that interesting. You know, there's a town and whatnot, Kakariko Village, which is very iconic. You know, and yeah, so like in Ocarina of Time as well, that's a town, and that's pretty much your one town outside of, like, I guess well, there's like the castle town and the Kokiri Forest town as well. So there's a few towns in Ocarina. Oh, and the Zora domain. Yeah, okay, so there's more towns than I was remembering. Anyway, that'll be fun to get to. That'll be the next game that I have to do, is Ocarina of Time. So, yeah. But it won't necessarily be the next review. I have something in between that'll be pretty interesting. So, but I do very much enjoy a lot about this game carrying on the legacy of the first two games in this series, and just making sort of the quintessential Zelda experience of the 16-bit sort of era. Now, in terms of like 8-bit Zeldas and whatnot, like, I like the Oracle and Oracle sees like those games. And the Minish Cap is actually a pretty good one, but that's almost like 32-bit Zelda styling, even though it is on, like, well, it's on the Game Boy Advance, which is 32-bit, but you know what I'm saying, like, so, yeah, but this is pretty solid Zelda entry here. I know this is the one that kind of everyone holds up on a pedestal, like it's the greatest Zelda game of all time, if you're not already with either Ocarina or Majora's Mask or something like that. You typically would put Link to the Past on the pedestal, and while I do enjoy this game, I don't really think that, for me anyway, it's quite to that level, because I just think that there's so many better Zelda games that do the concept better. But it was groundbreaking for the time, obviously, and that's why a lot of people love it. And it's a really fun game as well. The mechanics got a lot better. You know, you can kind of... You have still the same basic swinging with your sword and whatnot, but the sword strike is a little bit longer. The animation obviously looks a lot better. The aesthetic of the game is just really good. Very colorful and vibrant, and everything's well detailed, and I definitely think that's great. Obviously the music is like top tier stuff. What I love about the music is that it actually establishes a lot of themes that would be used later in like Ocarina of Time and stuff, like the Kakariko Village theme and that kind of stuff. And so it's just a really iconic soundtrack. The of course, overworld theme and the Dark World overworld theme are also really great. Yeah, this is the Kakariko Village one, which is yeah. So, you know, very iconic stuff, and very nostalgic, obviously, for me more so because of Ocarina of Time, but I did also play this game as a kid too, so you know, there's that. Also, it carries on the concept of shops from the original Zelda game, whereas Zelda 2 didn't really have sort of a currency system, so there wasn't really a way to do that in Zelda 2. So the shops just kind of everywhere. Not like everywhere. There's really more like fairies and stuff, another thing that they carried on from Ocarina. And that's sort of more so what I'm sorry, Ocarina from the original Zelda they carried on. Sorry, it's like I'm tired. Anyway, the fairies that they carried on from the original Zelda, and then they also have fairies in a bottle now that you can catch, which is an iconic thing. You can get the bug catching net from the kid in Kakariko Village, and then you're able to now catch things and put them in the bottles. So, you know, that would be a trend that would continue on to Ocarina and like pretty much every other Zelda game beyond this, to where you can capture the fairy in the bottle and it'll revive you, that kind of stuff. This is also the introduction of mini games to get heart pieces. Heart pieces also were introduced here, more so than just like getting heart upgrades, you know, like one big heart, or in Zelda 2, the experience upgrades to get more life. But this, you know, this also introduced that. So this is doing a lot of firsts for Zelda. You know, there's people in the world to interact with. Now, Zelda 2 did do that, but these people feel more like they're a part of this world than just some like random NPC like in Zelda 2 for the most part. None of those people really stand out. You know, that was an NES game. This is a Super Nintendo game. There's houses and stuff here you can actually like go in. They're like well detailed, and you can like find items in there and stuff. Treasure chests are in this game, which were introduced in this game. Like, they didn't have that in Zelda 1 or in Zelda 2 for that matter. The Pegasus Boots is a really iconic power-up that they would use in most of the handheld Zelda games, and like, you know, like Link's Awakening and stuff. Yeah, they didn't really have that in like Ocarina and stuff, but you know, they used it in a lot of other games, and like there's a lot of similarities to draw between this game and Ocarina 2. I'll probably talk about them a little bit more next time when I review Ocarina, but you know, the world switching and a lot of that, and you know, there's that great video by Egoraptor, the sequelitis thing, of course, that like talks about how Link to the Past pretty much inspired a lot of what Ocarina of Time did, and then Ocarina of Time was sort of just a 3D remake, if you want, of Link to the Past there. So, in a sense, I can see where they're coming from with that. So, or where Egoraptor was coming from. I don't know why I said there. But like, where he was coming through with that statement. But, yeah, so there's a lot of similarities to future Zelda games because the formula works so well here that they wanted to carry on what worked really into the future Zeldas. And there was a lot that did work about this game, you know? Such as the mechanic where you switch worlds. Signs in this game. I guess the other two, the Zelda 2 had signs, but you can pick up the signs and then you can, like, destroy them and stuff. That was here. Lots of, like, secrets and stuff which carry on from, like, Zelda 1. There's heart pieces all over the place that it's like, how do I get that? And then you get the mirror to switch between worlds, and then you're like, oh, okay. I just have to switch between worlds. There's like a random guy who's just like standing next to a sign, and the sign says like, pay no attention to the average middle-aged man standing by the sign. And if you talk to him, he just like fucking doesn't do anything or tells you to leave him alone. And then later on in the game, you get this chest and you can bring it to him. You find out he's like a master locksmith or whatever. It's just crazy shit. It's pretty cool. There's these like tablets. There's like 3 of them throughout the world. Or there's 2 of them, and then there's like a little pond you can like throw a thing in, and they'll give you these medallions that are just like screen clearing nuke things, and you can like use them for different things throughout the world. It's like kind of the introduction of magic medallions, you know, like they had in Ocarina, the little diamond shaped things, you like Pharaoh's Wind and Din's Fire and that kind of Nehru's Love, all that kind of stuff. That's kind of inspired by those. And you know what I don't like, or what, not that I don't like, just a thing that I noticed is that in Zelda 2 they have a healing spell, right? But they never really have that in most of the other Zeldas afterwards. Even though every Zelda pretty much has magic, at the cost of like maybe all of my magic, you could give me like half my life back or something. I think that'd be a fair trade-off, you know? I can see to where they didn't want to implement that because then it would leave you stranded without magic sometimes. But I don't know. I just think that would have been a cool concept to explore somewhere in a Zelda game beyond Zelda 2. Because what I've noticed is I'm constantly running out of fucking health in this game. So why is it that I can't like do something of a trade-off there like that? It's just an interesting concept I thought about, and I'm just like, wow, you know, like half the time throughout the game when I need health, and you know, of course I use the rewind feature a little bit, but it's just like, you know, it didn't have to be that. We could have had some kind of trade-off or something. Would have been interesting. Yeah, I think what's another like pretty good strength of this game is just that now it's 16-bit. You know, we can do a lot more with the world. Like I said, the colors and everything really pop. But like even the world design now, stuff like the hook shot, which was introduced here. I mean, like shit. Like let's even just talk about all of this shit. Let's look at the items here, quick. The bow, obviously had that in Zelda 1, but here it works relatively the same. The boomerang, you can get an upgrade to that. There's like fairies throughout this world that some of them will give you an upgrade. One of them, like the fat one, gives you the silver arrows, which is still a thing they carried on from Zelda 1. They didn't really... I mean, it was always the light arrows after this to kind of defeat Ganon. It was never like the silver arrows. I don't know why they like switched it over, but like maybe it was a translation thing or something. I like light arrow better. I think that kind of works out better, but silver arrow is also iconic because, you know, it was from the first Zelda and Link to the Past and whatnot. So yeah, but the boomerang for sure is still a pretty great companion. Maybe not as great as it was in Zelda 1, because now you can get the hook shot, and that can let you like grapple yourself over stuff as long as you can kind of attach yourself to something on the other side, like a skull or a block or something. Um, so that's a great way to traverse the world now. Also, swimming. You couldn't really do that in Zelda 1. It gives you even more of a world to explore. Um, and in the remake, they added diving too. I was kind of surprised that it wasn't in this game. I was talking about those fairies. There's one that'll give you upgrades um, to your sword, and then um, to your shield as well. Does it give you a sword upgrade? Yeah, it gives you a sword upgrade. Gives you a shield upgrade, and then there's one that'll give you bomb and arrow upgrades, which can go up to 70 and 50, which is like the most arrows I think that you can pretty much get in any Zelda game, as far as I can remember. So that's pretty intense there. Um, but yeah, so of course the magic powder that got introduced here. Uh, they use that in Link's Awakening again. The hammer, which they were using Ocarina of Time. The ocarina, which is just called a flute here, but it's clearly an ocarina, got introduced here. As well as like, not necessarily potions. You had that in Zelda 1, but like storing those in your bottle also kind of got introduced here. So yeah, pretty interesting. So, but it's just a natural expansion to all of these items. It just made all of them a little bit better, or they stayed relatively the same. And the gameplay is more refined. They have more enemy types. Some of them have like spears, and some of them throw bombs at you. Some of them are just really fast, and they just kind of run up on you. Some of them attack you from the air now. I mean, they had that in Zelda 1, but it's just like there's more variety. Here, they could flesh that out better with the 16-bit style, more so. Yeah, so everything is just kind of a really great expansion on the concept of Zelda 1. That doesn't mean I necessarily like this game better than Zelda 1, because I don't, but I feel like it just kind of gets lost in the shuffle of like some of the other better, more refined Zelda games in the future. Now I know that's how a lot of people feel about Zelda 1, and so that's interesting to me because that's how I feel about Link to the Past, and especially because Link Between Worlds is basically just this game again, except with a lot better concepts of openness, to where you can kind of do things in any order once you get to the Dark World, and the whole item mechanic was pretty cool, where you could just rent items rather than having to find them in the dungeons and whatnot. And I thought that was really, really fresh and innovative. Whereas this game, you just kind of find certain items in certain dungeons, and even then, a lot of times it is just like in Ganon's Tower and one of the dungeons, you just get the blue and the red mail, just like in the original Zelda, except they're both in dungeons this time and not just out in some random part of the world. Which is cool. I like that they carried on the red and blue armor from the original. They obviously have that in Ocarina of Time as well. But, god damn it, there it is. It's right behind your fucking house. Oh, god, I've been looking for this the whole fucking time. I feel so stupid now. There's a fairy fountain right behind your house that you can get fucking fairies from, like the littler fairies that you can keep in the bottle or whatever. That is so shit. I was looking for that this whole time. It's right behind your house. I'm an idiot. So yeah, like, I just like a lot of that stuff. I like how, I don't know, the world just feels more fleshed out. Obviously, we're in a more of a living, breathing world now. Like, at some point, you become, like, wanted, and they have little posters everywhere that, like, show your face. And it's like, then people react to that later. Like, even people that were nice to you before will be like, oh shit, he's a criminal. I don't want to, be associated with him or whatnot. Of course, they have the forest in this game, the Lost Woods, and they would carry that on to Zelda, Ocarina of Time. Obviously, they had that the original Zelda as well, but this is the first time that the Master Sword was kind of a thing. So they have that. Oh, is that a bomb or what is that? They have that hidden away in the Lost Woods, just like later on. That is a bomb. In Ocarina of Time and whatnot. So it's just pretty cool to like go into the woods there and like look around. There's all these fake swords and whatnot. Like you hear about oh, you need to go find the Master Swords. It's in the woods, but like even when you go there before you have all 3 pendants, it'll just like, well, first of all, you can't even read it until you get this book that's like in Kakariko Village that you can like knock off a shelf. Also a thing that happens later in Link's Awakening that they reference again. So yeah. But anyway, so then you find that in the forest, and then when you read that, it tells you that you need the 3 pendants, and it's like, okay, so you go get the 3 pendants from the dungeons, and then you get switched over to the Dark World. So that's very similar to the, later in Ocarina, they'd reuse that for the Kid Link and Adult Link thing, where you do the 3 first easy dungeons, and then you do the harder dungeons later. And this is kind of a Zelda tradition later on that they kept, but that's all really established here. And so yeah, that's just pretty cool to see that. There's fortune tellers in this game too that'll kind of give you a hint on where you need to go, so that's pretty cool. I guess like Navi is the Fi or Fee or whatever the fuck that girl, from the later like Skyward Sword and shit. There's always some kind of companion that'll tell you where you need to go, but there's like fortune tellers in this game that kind of fill in that role. So that's interesting. You kind of have to pay them to tell you that information though, which is like kind of odd. But yeah, so I like how you kind of get to see the light world, and then you get to see a different variation of that with the dark world and whatnot. Obviously they did that again like later on in the other games too, like Ocarina of Time and stuff, but I just think that's really cool, because then you have a kind of a sense of where everything is kind of supposed to be, but how it's all changed too, and how like most of the people are like monsters and stuff now, or like that kind of thing. It's just really interesting. So yeah, and then like the dungeons in this game, they're pretty good. I like them. I enjoy them. But they just don't feel that memorable. They all just kind of feel very dungeony. And I know a lot of people could probably raise that complaint with the original game, and I would kind of agree with that on the original game. Sometimes it feels very samey, but like that's kind of my complaint with this game. It's just the fact that the dungeons, they're not super memorable for me outside of like the first few. They all just kind of blend together. And I can't really remember the layout of the design or like specific rooms. Like outside of maybe like Turtle Rock, where it's got like, you use the one to make little platforms and all that. I kind of remember that stuff, and it's got the big tubes and whatnot. That one's a little bit more memorable, but like fucking, I don't know, like most of the other ones. They all just kind of blend together and feel the same to me. Even the ice one that like has like a different palette. Like they all have different palettes, and that's kind of what's so surprising to me, because you'd think that those different palettes would mean that they feel more memorable, but they really don't. But they're not like bad. I feel like they're fun to play through for the most part. Some of the, like I said, some of the later ones just get really like convoluted, like or there's just like certain rooms where I'm just like, what the fuck am I supposed to do here? So I kind of have to look those up. But most of the earlier dungeons aren't so bad, and I do enjoy them. I don't really have like any favorites or whatever. That's what it kind of comes down to, is they're just not as memorable for me as some specific dungeons. Like I can remember almost every bit of every Ocarina of Time dungeon, like all of the rooms and whatnot. I could pretty much, I'm picturing the Shadow Temple in my head, and I'm picturing all the little different rooms, and I can go through it in my head. I can't really do that with this game. I'm not really able to picture all of that in my head. Um, so that's just something, to me, the game isn't as memorable dungeon design wise, but they are usually pretty inventive, and they have good use of a lot of the different items and whatnot. And there's actually a thing where if you like um, Pegasus Boots, you're like run into a thing, like it'll knock you back, and that knockback can actually be used to get over some gaps. And there's actually even a little hidden room in Ganon's tower where you have to kind of do that to get over this gap. There's nothing over there for you to hookshot to or anything, but you can get over the gap and actually get some fairies before you fight Ganon there, or like close to where you fight Ganon. Um, or you don't fight Ganon there, but you fight Aghanim there. Also, so I just thought that was cool. But also, like, what the fuck? He turns into a bat and flies away to the pyramid there. And I'm just like, I was talking to Mayav at the time. We were like on a call or whatever. And I'm just like, what the fuck is this? Is this Castlevania now? Because like he's fucking Dracula. But yeah, he turns into a fucking bat. Like, what the fuck, dude? I don't remember that shit. But yeah, I don't know. I like the game, like I said. It's just some of the dungeon stuff just doesn't really like sit as super memorable with me. But I think the world itself, and like the heart pieces and whatnot, and like all the stuff there is to do throughout the world, and just exploring that is a lot of fun. A little frustrating sometimes when I can't figure out like where exactly I'm supposed to go, but I did eventually obviously figure that out later. So and having a map on hand might also be handy, but the game does provide you with a nice big map of the area, and it gives you little indicators on where all the dungeons are at all times, and where your portal that you've set with the magic mirror is to the dark world, if you have that and you're in the light world kind of thing. So that's pretty cool, and it gives you a good idea of where everything is. It's a really nice map. Like, it's just, like, it's not going to tell you every little detail, obviously, but it's a lot more handy than Zelda was. So that is also another good progression, a good change to the world, is this map. And I think that's very good, that they actually did something with that. And then the maps in the dungeons are also really good as well, telling you where you've been and whatnot. Not necessarily at helping you figure out how to get through the dungeon, but yeah, the walls you can bomb in this game are also clearly marked by a crack in the wall now. So that's another change from Zelda 1 that I would call an improvement for sure. And they would carry that on to most of the future games. Sometimes in future games they wouldn't actually have a crack, but for the most part it's the standard to have that in the wall there. And that all started with this game. So there you go. I like ramming into trees in this game and just seeing like what'll come out. Sometimes it's bees, Sometimes it's like apples or something that'll like you can eat to reheal your hearts. Sometimes it's like fairies. A few times, yeah. So that's pretty cool. You can actually catch these bees and like release them on like bosses and stuff, which is pretty cool. There's a golden bee that like can take down I think one of the bosses like really easy, or like most of the bosses. I don't know. I don't remember how you get the golden bee, but it's a thing and it's pretty cool. Um, Kind of like how in Wind Waker you can just dump the water on the one guy and he's just dead or whatever. So it's interesting stuff. But yeah, um, I don't really know. Oh, they have. I see. These are. I'm playing the game, so there's a lot of things I'm noticing while I'm playing the game. They have the sword beam again, but it's like a circular like a sonic boom sort of thing now. It's pretty cool. I like that. Also, the mirror shield is in this game, so that's pretty good. It really doesn't do much other than like reflect beams and stuff. I don't like the one thing I don't like that they did fix in Link's Awakening, or maybe I don't like it because I played Link's Awakening, is you can't really use your shield like to block things, except for like if you're like standing in that direction, you know, kind of like in the original Zelda. I think it would have been nicer if you could just like use your shield. And I don't remember if you can do that in the Game Boy Advance version, but I think that would be a nice inclusion. Uh, it would have been nice to have that option there. Um, so yeah, but you know, what do you do? Uh, but there's not that much more to say. I really like the game, but like it's not my favorite Zelda. It's actually pretty like middle tier Zelda for me. Um, Mostly because it's just like there's so many better Zelda games in my opinion, like Ocarina and Majora's Mask, and you know Link's Awakening is another one I really love. Hell, even like Wind Waker would probably be one that I might put higher than this. We'll have to see like how I feel once I've gone through them all again, but in terms of like a sequel to Zelda 1, I think it did what it set out to do, and it needed to just be that next step in the series that would really push everything forward, and I think that it's a good progression to things, and it really established a lot of the things that were well refined later to be just brilliant in the series, and it really started to give the series some of its unique personality to what is a Zelda game, and I think that's really special. So, um, yeah, like I like it. I like the aesthetic. The world is very colorful and vibrant. The jump to 16-bit was cool. The music sounds just a lot better. I mean, I love the original soundtracks and whatnot, and they have their own charm. But you know, it sounds more orchestral now, and just more full is what I'm trying to say when I say better. But is, you know, a lot of iconic themes were added, um, and I think that's you know, it's a nice expansion of things. The more that they change, the more the things stay the same, and they're referencing a lot of stuff from Zelda 1 and even in Zelda 2, you know, like the towns and stuff that they're referencing and expanding upon. And I think that's just really good. They're adding their own things like the Dark and Light World system. And just for like a 16-bit game, that's kind of impressive that they could even sort of set that up. I guess it's just sort of a palette swap in some areas or whatnot, but it's just still really impressive for the time, I would say. And that there's a lot of secrets kind of hidden off the beaten path, and just, you know, getting all the heart pieces and stuff will take you a good amount of time to sort of find. So there's a good amount of replay value. Um, there's always more little secrets and stuff to find throughout the world, and I think that's cool. Uh, but yeah, the gameplay is a good progression and giving all the new items and stuff and the bottles. Bottles are great. All the key items is pretty cool. Um, yeah. So I like Link to the Past, and I think that's cool. I think it's cool how you can upgrade your stuff, like your arrows and your bombs and shield and all sorts of stuff you can upgrade, and that's all just you find that those upgrade fairies like on the like just like in secretive areas, and that's pretty cool if you're like really paying attention. And another thing is cool is like you start to kind of get some of that Metroidvania feel where you get an item and then you can kind of go to different parts of the world because you have that item now. Certain things are blocking your path, and you can uh, um, either pick up a thing, or when you get the Pegasus Boots, you can like dash into these different sorts of rocks, and that'll open up a lot of little secrets throughout the world. So it's always fun whenever you beat a dungeon to just kind of be like, okay, well, where can I like use this new item? And I think that's cool that they really did a lot with that. So stuff like that's really neat. Um, yeah, it's just a good game. It's not one of my favorite ones. I think the dungeons are a little not weak, but just unmemorable sometimes. But the aesthetic and the music and the gameplay sort of makes up for that. And yeah, it's a pretty fun game, but it's just not one of my more favorite Zelda ones. But it did establish a lot of things that would be very iconic for the later games, and yeah, so I appreciate it for where it took the series, in a sense, and established. Well, I mean, I think they had like, no, I don't know if Lake Hylia was like in the original game, but places, locations like that, Lake Hylia and Kakariko Village, stuff like that, that would be used in later Zeldas um, to come. So it's a game that established a legacy for the series as a whole. I think that's really cool. But I'm going to give the game an 8.7 out of 10. Um, yeah, because I really like it, and it's a nice game to have on the go if you have the Game Boy Advance version, or if you have the Switch thing to where you can just play it on your Switch there. And I did play a little bit of handheld, and I actually used this controller here. I was trying to use, wow, that makes one of my Joy-Cons look black, but it's green. That's so weird. That's so strange. That is that's crazy. Like green screen effect or something. Oh wow, that's interesting. Anyway, but yeah, I didn't think this would be that great. I was gonna try to use like one of my Super Nintendo looking controllers, but they didn't. I had to like charge them or something, and they didn't like sync up or something like that. So I ended up just using this, and this worked pretty good. And I actually was even using the analog stick most of the time, which was kind of funny because it's like, the D-pad or whatever. I don't like where the D-pad's placed on here, though. I wish it would have been here or something, and then they could just had like, I don't know. It's fine like for most games, but like when I actually need to use the D-pad, it's kind of strange. I could just use my Pro controller, but this thing also wasn't charged, so like, and even then that would feel kind of weird with the D-pad or whatnot. I'm actually kind of glad I used this. I like this controller for this game. But anyway, yeah, so 8.7, and it's pretty good, and I can't wait to get to the later Zeldas now that I've played Link to the Past. Yeah, because the next few are going to be like my nostalgia territory, and even so, I know how to like kind of 100% those games, like very much. It's very ingrained in my head how to do that. So they're just a lot of fun to kind of do that with, and I'm excited to kind of get back to those, and really talk about Ocarina and Majora and whatnot, and then starting to get to some of those handheld Zeldas like the Oracle games and the Minish Cap and all those, and just yeah. And we're gonna start to play some of the Zeldas I just haven't played in a long time, and that'll definitely also be interesting. So, but I'm excited. So yeah, watch out for the next review, which will not be Zelda related, and it'll be about something that I really had a great time with. So until then, this has been JZNES saying keep it classic, stick around for more reviews, underrated games. I'll see you guys in the next one. JZ